Hi everybody, I've been asked to put a little video together of how I put an internal bevel onto my little gut-up type, little zipper knives. Now I've got two different ones. One of them is the little Coney kit zipper. This one is not heat treated yet, so what I'm going to do with this is show you how I start off a bevel before I go for heat treating. And then I've got one of my stalker zippers. This one is heat treated. I've cleaned up the bevels on either side, well, cleaned up the flats on either side, and then I'm going to show you how I finish it off, putting it onto the grinder and getting it nice and sharp on the internal bevel. It looks a little bit Heath Robinson because instead of using one of my fancy jigs, I'll use my original one that I started off when I first did my knife making, which is basically a block of wood that's been cut to the angle that I want it. So this is approximately 13 degrees. So it gives like a 26-degree bevel altogether. I've put a few different pins in. So a pivot point is where I put the blade on itself, like so. And then I can work it on one of the wheels on my grinder. And now I've tilted my grinder over, so it's horizontal now. And yeah, horizontal, I'm just trying to think then. And what I'm going to do is just take a little bit from the inside. I need to score a line on it just to make sure that I've got it in the right place. But what I usually do is work or walk it up slightly. So if I know the distance of the bevel is the same on either side, I know that I'm going into the centre. And that's how I usually get my bevels into a centre point. So anyway, get it from here, I'll get it onto the grinder and we can have a look at how I put it all together. Right, so I'm bringing it over onto my grinder. This set has got three different smaller wheels here, and I'm using the 1.5 inch wheel just to start off the bevel for what I need before it goes to heat treat. So I've got a 60 grit belt on, and I'm just going to switch it on and start this bevel off. There we go. See the nice internal there. So press it off. So there we go, that's all I'm going to do to start off. Just get the bevels on there. Now that's ready to go for heat treat and I can send that away, and once it comes back I can get it all finished off. Right, so next thing I've got to do is put the final bevel onto this one. So pretty much the same again. Put it on, clamp it up onto my block. Where's my clamp? There we go. So that just holds it in place. And then I've got to work this bevel here. However, one thing I need to do, as my phone goes ding, is this plate I've got here, I've actually raised it up. Because over time, while I've been working with it, I ended up with a groove just inside my wheel. So I've just put a plate on the inside, just to raise it up slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that out while I'm sorting the bevels out. Then it gives me a little bit more room to work with at the top. Right, so I've changed the plate level, so I've made it slightly lower. It gives me a bit more of the belt to work with. Now, just to run through what belts I usually use. So I'll start off on a 60 grit, because I've already taken most of the material out that I want to before I heat treat it. So move on to a 60 grit, get it very close to having the bevel sorted, then I'll turn on to a 120 grit. Then I'll bring the bevels both together. From that point onwards, it's basically polishing it up each time. So I'll do a 240 grit, 400. From there, I'll move on to, I'll put a 600 grit on as well. Basically trying to get out the scratches each level as I'm going up. And then finally I move on to a Trizac belt, or two Trizac belts, and I've got a A30 and an A16, so that works out about 800 and 1200 grit, I think it is. And that's what I'll finish off at. Once I've done that, then I'll put it onto my polishing wheel and give it a final polish, and that should sort the bevels out and make it nice and sharp. There's no need to go up any higher than that in grits, because all you end up doing is making a really fine edge that's not going to last on it. So best off 1200 and that's fine. Right, so now it's just a case of working through the grits, keeping it cool, dipping it in the water every now and again, just so you're not burning the edge, because as soon as you go too far, you burn the edge off, you destroy the temper, and then it's not going to stay sharp whatsoever. Or you can have a difficulty even getting it sharp to start with. Right, let's get started with these. Right, so that's going through on the 60 grit. Now what you can see, see if I can catch it on the light, it looks like, what you won't see when you're doing like a straight bevel and coming straight backwards and forwards. So if it was a normal bevel, you'd grind it so the belt looks going like that. This, because you're going across, it's like you can see the grain of the steel in there almost. And what sometimes you see is that where the grain sort of like lifts up around this edge. Don't worry about it too much. You just keep working at it. What I can see now, I need to take a little bit more off this side than I have on that side, but what I'm going to do now is swap from my 60 grit and go on to the 120 grit. So just put that down. Right, let's see if I can show it here. So I can just see on this edge, right here, is where the grain is just lifting up. I don't know if it's focusing in properly or not. Hopefully it is. And also, along this edge, because I've used a harsher grit to start off with, I can see a few marks that have been left from that. But what I'll have to do, if I can't get them out when I'm gradually grinding it, what I'll do is I'll move on to get some grits and hand sand it out and just work that bit out. As you can see, I need a little bit more off that side than what I have on that side, but again, just keep checking every now and again. The main thing is sort of like the way the bevel joins, there we go, moving out all over the place. So where the bevel joins here and at the top, just keep an eye on those and just making sure that those are even as I'm working along, but nice and steady. If the grinder's going too fast, just slow it down, make it a bit more manageable if you can do. It's one advantage of having a 3-phase as opposed to having the single-phase motor. I can slow it down, it makes it more usable machine this anyway. So right, keep at it. So like I said earlier, once I'd got onto the, well, these are aluminium oxides as well as some of the ceramics, but once I've got onto these belts, it's just a case of each one is just going up to take the scratches out from the previous one, so you're just polishing up, so you're not doing a great deal of work with each one of these belts. Most of your work is done with more aggressive grits, so like I say, 36 is really hogging out material, 60 is sort of starting off refining, 120 to meet it all together, then moving 240, now we're on to the 400, and this is progressively just more and more polishing. Again, just taking scratches out from a previous grit. Right, so that's the blade sorted. Now you can probably see, maybe not, since I've got cameras, there's a little bit of a burr on the top here. So what we're going to do is just get on that onto the buffing wheel. That'll take the burr out of the way and also leave quite a nice sharp edge. Right, so get that done and I can show you. Right, so that's the internal bevel all nice and sharp. One thing I have noticed, because I'm using the 60 grit belt to start off with, I've got some marks there that I need to take out. So what I'll do is, once I'm cleaning the blade up, I'll just get some wet and dry and I'll start working through a few grits just to get that out. Just basically because it's dug in sideways, it's taking a few out. So one thing to sort out, to clean up, but let's see if it's sharp enough. The old paper test. Yeah, that's fine. This one is actually going to be a pair. So it's been drilled for having the larger pins on it. So I've got a Fowler stalker and a zip stalker, or stalker zipper, whichever. And these are going to be set as a pair in a sheath. So hopefully I should get some photos of these up shortly, but I'll make sure that I'll get it sent out first. Right, thank you very much for watching, guys. If you like what you see, like and subscribe and all that jazz. And other than that, I'll see you later. Thank you.